Okay, we are ready to start our new panel. So hello, Dr. Pai. Nice to see you again.
Nice seeing you.
Thank you for devoting so much time to us and giving us an opportunity to learn all the information that you've spent so much time studying. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, Anthony. Nice to meet you for the first time.
Hey, it's an honor. Great to be here.
Thank you for being willing to join us. I know that you have had a very high profile career and a lot of very well-known books that have been New York Times bestsellers. So we greatly appreciate you coming on and sharing directly with us your information.
Of course, anything I can do.
Great.
Wonderful.
So to start, if both of you could just give us a quick 30-second rundown of, or 1-minute rundown of just what your background, what you've been doing the last 10 years, your books, and just general background on what's been going on with you for the last 10 or so years. Dr. Pai, if you want to start.
Sure. So my name is Dr. Sunil Pai. I'm an integrative medicine physician. That's my specialty. I'm formally trained in integrative medicine. As I mentioned in the video before, I've studied further plant-based nutrition, medical yoga, acupuncture, neuroacupuncture, physiological regulating medicine, homotoxicology, functional medicine, Ayurvedic medicine. So kind of an encompassing variety of indigenous and natural therapies, in addition to conventional medicine. What I've done is, we focus in our clinic on evidence-based therapies, using a factual scientific approach, but looking at not keeping anything off the table, looking at every culture, every indigenous medicine, every natural medicine that we have historical use, and now we have a lot of clinical trials. I did write a best-selling book, An Inflammation Nation, which is the definitive 10-step guide on how to prevent, reverse, and treat all disease by changing your diet, lifestyle, and using natural anti-inflammatories. And we created certain products like our flagship Bosmeric SR that is one of the largest best-selling natural anti-inflammatories out there. And we focus on, in the last 10 years, we're looking at further nutrition. So we do a lot of nutrition testing, microbiome testing, food sensitivity testing. I've spoken on the Real Truth About Health multiple times over the last, I think I have 6 lectures now, or 7 lectures on this series. So these are things that people can look at, like from a complete integrative perspective of changing patients' epigenetics, their diet, lifestyle, their environment, and their belief system on getting them healthier and happier towards optimum health.
Thank you. Great. And Anthony, would you like to also give us your same feedback? Okay, hold on. We'll come back to him in just a moment. So Dr. Pai, just a quick thing for someone who's saying, I already speak to a nutritionist and my doctor's a great guy and he seems to know what's going on. Is there something different that someone would find out speaking to you than their very friendly, nice medical doctor who they go to and their very nice, friendly nutritionist that they go to? Why do they need to listen to our panel with someone named Dr. Sunil Pai and Anthony William when they already have a doctor and they already have a nutritionist? What's different about talking to you?
So the average person answers the question, Stephen. The average person actually has more than one doctor in America right now. They have a primary care specialist and they have a few specialists like the patients that I see. They have chronic disease. They'll have a cardiologist, a neurologist, the GI doctor, psychiatrist, or and then they have orthopedics. As well as where I live and the clients that I see will have an acupuncturist, a chiropractor, a naturopath, etc. Right? So this barrage of care, which is good and bad on some levels. But at the end of the day, the patients are really sick and tired of being sick and tired. The average person that we see will take about 8 to 12 pharmaceutical drugs, but they're also taking about 10 to 20 different supplements as well. So it's kind of a little bit of everything, a hodgepodge. And we have to look at, evidence-based wise, what can we do with diet, lifestyle, and natural therapies alone that we can help reduce the use of just treating symptoms, which kind of conventional medicine does very well, and look at, the epigenetics of using natural therapies, looking at dietary and lifestyle changes that we can now improve their overall health. Someone having a nice doctor or a mean doctor, to me, doesn't mean anything. It's like if your labs everything is within normal range and you're feeling fantastic, you have great energy, you have great cognition, you have great digestion, you have great libido, you have, all your numbers are where they're supposed to be, then they don't need to see me. But the fact of the matter is that most people are not feeling as well as they should be. And that's why we try to provide them a better approach to their overall health.
One thing, I feel that a lot of people feel pressure to present the results of what happens with their patients in a positive light. But the reality is this isn't a miracle. If you eat a whole food plant-based diet, it doesn't mean that everything's perfect. So when you see people switch to a whole food plant-based diet and a low inflammation lifestyle, how often does this work, as opposed to how often do people stay sick, diabetes gets worse, obesity gets worse, heart disease, cancer? Like, we're almost getting a distorted view, like this always works, when maybe people are just presenting the good results and not the bad. If you took every single person that's come to see you, how often do you feel like the lifestyle gets the results they want, and how often do we feel like it just can't do it? Doesn't
So
work.
I would say about 85% of everybody will get better, right? Why is that not 100%? It's because not everybody's compliant. Not everybody can make all the lifestyle changes because it's difficult to change, right? So what we look at is that we like to look at risk reduction. I'm not a perfectionist. So there's other people on the panels and this conferences who are really like hardcore perfectionists. I'm not looking at perfection because this raises the bar too high for the average person. I'm a risk reductionist. So we go through all your epigenetic changes, all your labs, all your factors, from your microbiome to your foods, to your stress levels, to how you sleep and your energy levels, et cetera. And we try to modify those behaviors appropriately. So we're optimizing the result. Right. The key is not saying like, oh my God, you have to just eat a whole food plant-based diet. On the panel that I was with earlier with Dr. Khan and Dr. Furman, some of the discussion was like, oh, even people eating a whole food plant-based diet, and Dr. Furman's, a subset of his database of his patients who've been eating that way still had dementia. And they were kind of stuck, well, what's wrong? Like, why are they getting dementia? Because there's more than just the diet that causes disease. It's the largest contributing factor to disease, and that by modifying that, you'll reduce the amount the most. However, there's still environmental toxicities, there's still stress, there's other things that we have to look at, which we do look at in our clinic to fill that void, to fill that gaps, to then improve that outcome in as many people as they want. But at the end of the day, the rate limiting step is the patient's motivation. So that's why we start off with, all these little steps, because a lot of people want to go hardcore, whole food plant-based, or even just juicing or raw or this or that. For me, it's like, I need to move all their parameters, particularly things that we can measure, like their lipids, their blood pressure, their blood sugar. If I start seeing trends and moving them in the right direction, and also I can get people to have that, what we call advanced jump. If I find their food triggers that are causing the most inflammation now, and I get them to change their diet overnight because they have pain or a chronic problem, that will lead them to have a further compliance on changing their full lifestyle. So we like to look at things, at least the way I look at it, as risk reduction, reducing all their risk by a variety of factors, rather than just saying, hey, all you got to do is just eat more kale, or all you got to do is eat more beans, or all you got to do is that. That's what a lot of other people may do. But at the end of the day, the body's a little bit more complex, disease is a little bit more complex. And the simplicity is, it's just simple lifestyle changes. It's just encouraging and explaining to the patient why they need to do those things.
Great. Anthony, are you there? I'm not able to see you on the screen. Not sure if you had to step out for a moment.
I think you might have stepped out.
Okay. So you wrote a book, Dr. Pai, called Inflammation Nation.
And Inflammation Nation, yes.
On Inflammation Nation. So last night we had a panel, we had someone named Clint Uber on, and he said that grounding is this very evolved, I guess, science, or evolved theory of science, or whatever you want to call it. And he said he spent a lot of time and money, and it works great for dealing with inflammation. Do you agree? I mean, this, before we tell people to go barefoot 2 hours every day, do you agree that that grounding is something that's worth devoting a lot of time to? Is it make it?
Well, I wouldn't devote all, 2 hours a day per se, but getting out more in nature, yes, there is science that will show that being grounded or being more on the earth will have positive beneficial effects. However, if someone has a migraine headache or they have rheumatoid arthritis, I mean, it's not going to reverse the rheumatoid arthritis. So let's be clear about that, because they have to have an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. That again is the magic bullet theory that everybody's looking at. Well, let me just go do one thing, and that's going to cure everything. That's a really kind of loaded question. And for those people who load a question like that, then they should expect a loaded answer. For me, it's like, you have to look at evidence-based. Would it ever harm a patient? No. Should they be more out in nature? Absolutely. Does it increase natural killer cells, even going to the mountains and smelling the pine? The data's proven that, right? We call it forest bathing, for example, right? That'll increase your natural killer cells in the data up to 30 days from just a day spending out in the forest. So yes, we should be doing all those things. But in the real world, the average person now lives in a city, lives in a high rise, or living, on these concrete buildings, so they never really get to the park. That's why people like to go to the park or go camping, for example, on a weekend. It's so wonderful. But that doesn't change that, oh my God, just because I wear barefoot and walk in the sand or walk on the earth, that I'm still going to eat my French fries, my cheeseburger, and smoke. So the goal is like, again, for people who think, oh, I can just do this, is like, those are people who are not then either following or seeing clients. They're just selling product.
Okay. Anthony, do you want to give us a little bit of background of what you've been doing the last 10 years? And kind of for people that are not familiar with your work, give us a quick update of what you've been doing.
Sure, that's great. Been putting out information highly advanced as far as with chronic illness. I think I think the thing is with medical medium information, it's always moving ahead all the time as far as both in conventional and alternative medicine with chronic illness. Not with everything, but with chronic illness, that's the main focus about it. And I think what happens when someone gets sick, it's like musical chairs out there. It's not an easy road for a lot of people. If you have 100 different symptoms, because face it, no one's going to come to the medical medium or medical medium information unless they've been through hell and back. And I think no one's going to say, hey, I want to lose a little weight, I'm going to go call the medical medium. No, or I'm going to go get a medical medium book. It's not going to happen. It doesn't happen. And so it's like, hey, I want to change my diet. I want to get some more exercise. I want to eat better. Let me go and get the medical medium information. It just doesn't happen. No one's going to go to the medical medium books unless they have been through hell. And I mean hell. That means every doctor, every single alternative medicine therapy, every single test, plant-based, keto, carnivore, whatever, all the things. And finally, they say they're down on their hands and knees and they're praying to God. And they're just like, what do I do? And then they're in the grocery store and they see somebody that's got a whole boatload of celery. And I'm like, what is that? What are you doing? Oh, it's the medical medium. It got my life back. I'm doing all his different stuff. I'm doing his heavy metal detox. I'm doing his celery juice. I'm doing whatever. And it's like, well, he's a medium, and they're like, yeah, no, he's a medium. He hears a voice. The guy's probably crazy. He hears a voice, but I've been through hell and back and nothing fixed it. And I didn't know where to go. And his shit makes sense. His stuff makes sense. And so I spent my life helping people one way or another, right? Helping them after they've tried everything, done that, been there, whatever. And that's what medical medium info is. It's just that. It's like, wait a minute, this makes sense. I've tried everything. Let me just try it. Let me try it. And then out of your 100 symptoms, one disappears. And then another disappears and another. And you stay on it and you stay on it and you stay on it. And then you're like, whoa. And that's what it is. It's seasoned people who come to the medical medium books. They see them in the bookstore. They get told by a friend or somebody. And they're like, I'm going to take a chance because I got nothing left and nothing is being fixed and I can't do, And so that's what happens with chronic illness. Someone needs a hip replacement. They're not going to go to the medical medium books. But if someone has a hip replacement issue and then 100 neurological symptoms and they've tried everything, they're going to go to their surgeon and their surgeon, their MD for their hip replacement, but they're going to then grab a medical medium book because they want to know what tingles, numbness, aches and pains, jaw pain, neck pain, back pain, blurry eyes, dizziness, sensations, tingles on the head, tingles on the nose, fatigue that's unexplainable to every other kind of symptom, and tremblings and sensations and seizures and all these things. They're going to want to know how the hell can we fix that? And by the way, get my hip replacement done, with this guy over here. But how am I going to get rid of that jaw pain after the dentist drilled all my teeth, still didn't fix it? Nothing fixed it. Nothing fixed this. And my jaw pain is to the point where I got to go on opioids because of it. I'm going to go and grab that medical medium damn book and I'm going to crack into it. And yeah, okay, let me get past the whole guy hears a voice thing. Let me get past that. Once you get past that, and you can get that information, it helps a lot of people. A lot of people are like, I can't just get past hearing the voice thing. I'd rather just die in a river somewhere and float away with my 500 symptoms because I can't get past hearing the voice. But then if you can get past it, it's beneficial for a lot of people. I mean, that's what the history shows and the results have been in for that. But anyway, it's a little bit about medical medium.
Okay. So if someone said, I never met Dr. Pai before, he seems like a nice guy, and Anthony Williams seems like a nice guy, and oh yeah, I see their books on the internet, they're fantastic looking, everything is great, but I just want to know right now, I got a pen and a paper, and I am willing to do what you tell me to do. I'm motivated, I'm passionate, I'm trusting, as specifically as you can. I'll take your supplement, I'll take Bosmeric, I'll do whatever you say. What are the most important things? We'll start jogging. Assume we would listen. Assume you don't have to motivate us. Assume we're willing to listen. What are, we don't even need the details. You don't even have to tell us the reason why it works, but just give us the recipe right now of the most important 5, 10, 15 things that you want us to do. And then we'll talk about after whether or not we're motivated or what questions we have. But just so we understand the recipe, we don't want any diseases. Tell us exactly what we should do. Do we need to buy a sauna? Do we need to have vitamin A? Just tell us exactly what to do as crisply as you can so that tomorrow we can start preventing any disease. And I'll take
Dr. Pai, you want to go first?
Yeah, you can go first. I'll wait.
What happens is it's about customizing. That's what I would say. It's about customizing. So if you crack open a medical medium book, it's not one size fits all. It's just not. I think if you're somebody that's eating animal products, you can still do medical medium, but still do it. If you're somebody that's, plant-based already, you can do medical medium. If somebody's vegetarian, you can still do medical medium, because if you don't have your diet in a great place, it doesn't mean you can't embark on all the different tools. It's about customizing, really. So what I would say is learn the information and customize it. Be your own detective, become your own expert. And that's what I would say to anyone. So I would make sure you read the books, find out where, like for instance, like the blood draw part of medical medium. A lot of doctors are changing the rules because of medical medium information. They're drawing less blood. And, if you go to a doctor and they take 40 vials of blood, 30 vials of blood, 25 vials of blood, and then you go back, they take another 12, another 7, another 10, another 15, you go back, it's another 20. What's happening is you're getting depleted. Symptoms can worsen. The doctor doesn't know. And because the system is built in a way to allow a lot of blood being drawn, right? And so this is one example. I've seen people have their lives change. This is one out of hundreds and hundreds of medical medium tools. Just reducing the amount of blood taken at one time can make or break someone rising out of the ashes. Literally, just that alone. I've seen people with Lyme disease. They're getting 20 more vials, 20 more vials. I'm getting worse. I'm getting worse. I'm getting worse. Well, you better get in here and take 20 more vials. And what's happening is, I know that everybody's like, all health professionals around the world are like, your immune system's in your gut. Your immune system's in your gut. Well, I scratch my head on that one, because your immune system is in your bloodstream, within your blood vessels, within all the organs, within everything. But your immune system is everywhere, right? But we'll be like, immune system's only in the gut, only in the gut. And I got all the respect for health professionals that believe that. I'm not saying that you don't have an immune system in your gut, but it leads to a kind of a misunderstanding of really what's happening. Because when you're drawing out all that blood, you're taking somebody's immune system and removing it while they have a chronic illness, which means their immune system is already struggling and no one really knows why. They probably have like HSV1. They probably have 2 Epstein-Barrs. They probably have 2 varieties of shingles. They probably have 2 varieties of HHV6, and they have all these different viruses. They probably have 2 or 3 streps. Their immune system is already struggling. They got neurological symptoms, and then their blood is being removed constantly. And this becomes a trap, a true trap. And so this tool alone has saved lives for people who have come to medical medium information, because you can tell your doctor, I want less blood drawn, do half vials, and the lab will take it. I know doctors all around this country now and around the globe that are actually drawing less blood, and they're saying to the labs, run it. And labs are starting to accept it and be like, you're right, we don't need much blood. Think about how much you can do with just one drop of blood. Quarter vials, half vials, asking for that and less vials. But this is just an example. I'm only saying this is because here's somebody struggling and trying to get better while they're being drained of their reserves. And it's hard when you got chronic illness. That's just one example. And so you can customize your direction with MM books because, and I'm not trying to be, this is like an MM book thing. That's not what this is. We're trying, I know we're all here trying to help anyone who's looking for answers. And I'm honored to be here with Dr. Pai, by the way, does incredible things. So the whole thing is just that alone can change the course of someone's recovery and survival with chronic illness, is knowing when to be like, whoa, you're taking a lot of blood and too many times. Let's do less. Let's do more appointments with less blood at once. And I've seen people just recover from that alone, never mind all the other tools and things and problems of, the other is learning what's wrong with you. Once you know what's wrong with you, that's a big one. I think one of the biggest the biggest problems with people struggling is when you don't know what's wrong, it's the chaos that ensues. It's chaos. It's losing faith in your body, losing faith in your own health, in your own being, in your own body. That's a big one right there. It's somebody saying, I really still don't even know what's wrong with me. I've already talked to 10 or 15, 20 doctors, 10 health coaches, 10 nutritionists, 10 dietitians. I've been through hell and back, but I really don't know what's really wrong with me. And that's a big one right there. And once they find some answers, and those answers, and I'm not just talking about you got a gallbladder problem, that's what was wrong, and there we are. I'm not talking about that. I'm pro conventional medicine, and and I'm pro alternative medicine. And I think a lot of people, they have problems with that, because I notice a lot of people, even in the vegan movement, they're like, no, conventional medicine is evil. It's evil. And it's not, So I support all walks of life in the health professional world and what has helped so many people. But once you're finding out like what's really truly the root, what's really truly wrong, and you couple that with some really powerful tools, like just being cautious about blood draw, these are just building blocks to get somebody to where they need to go. And then and there's so much other stuff you can customize and work with. But I mean, that's what I would say to somebody if they first rolled in and to a medical medium book, and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where do I start? What's the top 5 things I can do? Probably the first thing I would say is, how much blood is being drawn? Well, I get blood drawn once a month, 15 vials. I'd be like, okay, you might want to talk to your doctor. Ask your doctor if it's okay. You do half vials. Ask your doctor if you could do more appointments for blood draws, but smaller amounts at one time. And then this is just one example, but anyway. So I'll give it to you, Dr. Pai.
Okay, thank you. Just one quick thing. Are you against all blood draws, or just you're saying when you do it, do smaller amounts?
No, I'm not against blood draw at all. Right. But the sicker you get, the more blood is being drawn. Remember that. Right. So I've seen people where they're getting sicker, even their blood draw is making them sicker. And then they have to come in to get more blood drawn because no one knows that the blood they just had drawn is breaking them down, breaking their immune system down more, taking away critical electrolytes. Somebody with a sensitive central nervous system, some kind of neurological condition, you take those critical electrolytes, it doesn't get fixed overnight by drinking some water and eating a chocolate chip cookie. It doesn't get fixed overnight, and people get so much blood drawn. So no, I'm all for getting your blood tested for sure. Okay. But it's about learning how to do it in the right way. And doctors are changing that now. I think my blood draw episode just on my podcast alone has changed the ground with this. And I think including the books, but this is a big one right here. And I'm not telling anybody don't get your blood drawn, but there's a way to do it carefully when you're sick with chronic illness, so you can protect yourself and actually, have a chance to heal versus go backwards. And I've seen a lot of things happen, especially at Lyme disease patients, 40 vials, 38 vials, 35 vials. And then they get sent to a specialist, another guy, and immediately orders up another 25 vials. And I've seen people literally just go backwards and backwards. It's devastating, devastating. There's ways of doing things. Still get your blood tested, still get your blood drawn to protect yourself. That's just one example.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Pai?
So we bring an evidence-based approach to health. And so from our perspective, what I recommend is that we're looking at an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. Inflammation is a triggering mechanism of all disease. So you want to look at all the factors, not only from the diet, but also from the lifestyle and the environment that are triggering that. We look at, microbiome functioning. We look at food testing. We look at sensitivities. We look at environmental aspects. We look at also the epigenetics, right? The diet, lifestyle, environment, belief system. How do we actually turn and encode DNA and RNA in real time? And it's through the epigenetics. This is what the science has been proven, and this is what we see all the time. But it's not just like ordering tests. The key is the art and science to medicine is what we have. And you have to have the experience and understanding of how to interpret those things. So yes, Anthony might say, well, a lot of people are getting seeing all these people. But yeah, they do see a lot of people. And there's a lot of bad providers out there. There's a lot of bad medical information that's being dispelled by subpar practitioners and sub-educated people out there, right? Because that's just how the system is, unfortunately. But we have to also not make sure that we're not just reducing everything to simplicity. Like, yes, one thing I would say with Anthony does say, which I would say I would agree, but in a hospital setting, the number one cause of anemia is blood draw. So are they drawing too much blood in the hospital more times than not? Yes, because there's too many multiple teams. Is someone on an outpatient basis sometimes getting drawn too much? Maybe, sure. Is that a real change in their immune system? Well, not necessarily. That's also a very reductionist type of thinking. Your body's replacing its blood all the time. You have trillions of blood cells, billions of blood cells that are being rebuilt, right? They have a 90-day life cycle. So we're always constantly doing that. But the immune system is everywhere. It's not in the blood, and it's not just formerly in the gut, right? The cells actually have communication. There's actually immune cells that are traveling elsewhere. But what we don't see is that the patient's immune system is decreasing, is that the volume of their blood that contains some of those cell characters are there. But also we have to see that when patients also have, like, for example, women who have menstrual cycles every month, it's not that they're lowering their immune system per se. Their body's rebuilding those things. So I wouldn't get stuck on like, oh, don't, everybody wants a simple, again, quick, simple fixes or simple things to say, but it's the interpretation of that. So when someone's ordering those labs, the key is then, do they understand how to interpret that? We can throw out all these viruses that Anthony's talking about, and on some levels, there's some data to support that. And when we do those testing, if we find that it is positive or something, then that is something that we would share as a commonality. When it's negative, though, and we can show that it's negative, then it's not like, well, then there's a discussion. Well, maybe the tests aren't picking it up, or maybe this is not something further in the future. It's like, no, right now, if that's what it is, if that's what the science is, then you can't discount one thing and say it's something else as the other. So we like to look at it from that perspective of like, you're building the microbiome, you're building the epigenetics, we're getting the overall patient's, even their mind, body, and the spiritual aspects in center. But again, everybody wants to just do one thing only, and we got to get away from this whole, even on the diet. It's like, yes, we need to go plant-based as much as you can, but people still have other problems that they can still have because the body and their bio unique on how they absorb those foods, how they approach those foods, the toxicity of how those nutrients are even kept in the foods, and how their body can also assimilate those foods. So then that's the individualization that we do in our practice that we're actually able to show through testing. When people go through programs, for example, and they're still not feeling well, it's because we have to now look at an individual basis, but actually having scientific data to show that change, or to show a positive or negative result, or to show a virus, or a reduction of something like a cholesterol, lipid, or inflammatory marker is key. Otherwise, we're kind of just giving information, not always bad information, but that's just giving information. At the end of the day, we have to have outcome-based driven follow-up with people, right? Because otherwise everybody can stand from the pulpit and say whatever they want. And we see that all through social media every day, in the news every day. And even in the news media, you'll see like, eat this, don't eat that, like literally in the same feed on one food. And it's because there's a confusion there. But at the end of the day, I always look at it as measuring outcomes. You have to just measure the outcomes. You have to show, do you have patients? Do you have people that you follow that you can say before and after? Everybody can feel good going for a weekend retreat or any kind of place following something for a short period of time. The goal is, can we actually demonstrate that over and over, that health benefit? And that's what we do at Sangevity, and that's what I do as an integrative medicine physician.
Okay, thank you. Now, in terms of juicing, is there something special about celery juice, or is sunflower sprout juice, and spinach juice and cucumber juice also the same, or is celery, particularly important? And are we better off juicing celery or eating 8 stalks of celery? So, and should everyone be juicing every day for the rest of their life?
Everybody has been juicing spinach, beet, carrot, celery stick in there too, apples, sprouts, but the needle wasn't necessarily moved with chronic illness. That's a great drink right there. Just throw anything in a juicer and make some vegetable juice and some fruits and vegetables, and run a juice and give that to somebody who's trying to lose weight, trying to get off of fried, greasy food and animal products or anything, or whatever, anything they're butter, cheese, milk, fried food, and pizza. When you're getting them off of that and you put them on spinach, carrot, beet juice, they start seeing improvements. Everything starts going great. Celery juice is for that chronically ill person who's tried all the juices. They've tried it all. They've done the carrot juice and the beet juice. They've done all the vegetable and fruit juices. That's the whole point. There's a difference, and when you drink 16 to 32 ounces of straight celery juice on an empty stomach first thing in the morning, something magical happens, which is I think a big part of why it's taken over. Celery juice wasn't a trend or a fad because it was propelled by money, propelled by advertising dollars. It was an organic movement that exploded because of the fact that the needle was moving for people. They're like, what the hell? I tried every single juice. I go to Whole Foods. I go to the health food stores. I try every juice. I tried everything. The minute I started doing celery juice, 3 days later, something's changing. 7 days later, something's changing. And there's a huge difference with celery juice by itself. But juices have been around for forever. They've been around for a long time, extracting juices and carrot juice and beet juice and everything else, and spinach and beet, spinach and carrot, you name it. You go to the store and you do that. But there's a huge difference between celery juice and the regular juices. And of course, regular juices, great for people. Definitely. People can run their juicer all day and put a whole bunch of stuff, fruits and vegetables and greens, anything they want in there, and make themselves a really nice juice. But celery juice has been life-changing for people that are seasoned, people that really understand it. I mean, the reason why celery juice felt just literally, people were just grabbing it off the shelves. I mean, there's produce trucks that just only bring celery now to all the different health food stores. That didn't exist before. There's a reason for it. I didn't take $50 million and advertise celery. I didn't take $100 million and advertise celery like, the caffeine companies, caffeine industry will advertise, will take money, and boom, whatever. Every industry will take tons of money and boom, right? And any kind of health trend and fad, there's money behind it. Boom, to push it out there. Advertising dollars. Boom, 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 boom. Celery juice? No, I don't even have a celery juice with my name on it, my face on it, going, try Anthony Williams celery juice, the famous and the original celery juice. And here, buy it here at Whole Foods. That doesn't exist. Not a dollar went into it. And it has changed and shaped literally all of alternative medicine. It's just go into the produce section and you'll see people just stand there long enough and they're coming in and grabbing their celery, and grabbing their celery in every single grocery store in the US and around the world. And they learned how to do it. You don't put lemon in it. You don't put spinach in it. You don't put tomatoes in it. You don't put whatever garlic in it. You don't put anything in it because it has to be by itself. That's why it works. It works because there's a balance with it by itself. Somebody will be like, oh, it's just hydrating. It's hydrating them. Really? That's kind of funny because there's a billion ways you can get hydrated. Everybody who's been sick has tried water. First thing doctors tell patients, drink more water. Have you tried drinking more water with your routine, right? Hydration in general and is not celery juice. It's not, it's like, redeeming factor, whatever you want to call it. It's not its main factor. It's what happens with celery juice is it's undiscovered as far as what it does and its benefits. Sure, you'll see out there now after Medical Medium exploded it, right? You'll see out there they say, oh, it's good for low blood pressure, good for high blood pressure. We're seeing people, whatever. You'll start seeing that now a little bit, but science and research stays the hell away from celery juice. If they really took a look at it, if money was invested into looking at it under the microscope, truly running tests, they would find a subgroup of sodium. And whether it's 100 years from now and I'm dead, fine, let it be discovered then, whatever, I don't care. But there's a subgroup of sodium. All sodium's not the same. All salt's not the same. But who's going to take $250 million and try to find out? Nobody. Certainly not the conventional medicine world. But yeah, there's a difference.
Is it better to take, if we're willing to eat 10 stalks of celery, is that better than celery juice? And how many ounces are you recommending?
Celery, if you eat it by itself, if you chop it up, throw it in a salad, it's incredible for you. If you eat 3 sticks of celery, 3 stalks of celery, whatever you want to call it, that's great for you. But no, it won't do the same thing. It has to be a large, celery is an herb. It's not a vegetable, but it's an actual herb. You're doing herbal medicine. So if you're somebody that's into herbal medicine, you're into herbs. Say you're a doctor in the plant-based movement and you like herbs, or you're somebody in the plant-based movement or whatever, any movement, and you like herbs. You just like them. You like Chinese herbs. You like, you like all herbs around the planet, right? Herbs from India. Just, you love herbs. And celery is an herb. And when you take that herb and you extract that herb and you get rid of the pulp, you get rid of the fiber. You can get fiber in your diet doing anything. You can get fiber. Yeah, eat more fruits and vegetables. You'll get fiber, right? Eat more, whatever you want. But the point is that you're making an herbal extraction. That's the difference with celery. So if you eat 3 stalks of celery, it's not going to give you enough of that herbal extraction. You need a larger amount of it. That's what's critical with it. So when you do 16 ounces of an herbal extraction, you don't have to have the fiber part of the celery to make it work. It actually goes against it working. You're sitting there crunching down celery sticks. You're not going to get the same benefits somebody's moving the needle with 32 ounces of straight celery juice, the herbal extraction. You see, like here, right? That's an herbal extraction. That's nettle tea. That's what I have, right? You don't do this at the end of, you don't do this. You say, hey, I'm going to open up this tea bag because I don't want to throw away the fiber and everything, and I'm going to just eat all that. You're making an herbal extraction. Nettle, Dr. Pai, you probably like nettle, right? That's probably like one of the ones that you like as far as the herb.
Yes, we do use that. But if I may interject.
Sure.
So is there any harm of anybody doing a celery juice? No. Is it the end all be all of everything that we should be doing? No. The challenge is, again, I'm going to keep saying this because this will be my soapbox. And now I figure out where I'm in the middle of this discussion here is that, everybody, you're just asking, well, which green juice? Well, so drinking any juice versus no juice will always be a benefit. Pure and simple. Eating more fruits and vegetables are going to be better than eating no vegetables. So if there's a juice that has 3 ingredients, it's better than the juice that has no ingredients or something else, right? If there's a juice that has 10 ingredients, then it's better. Why? Because we're just getting, but you have to understand at the end of the day, what we've done, because we've had patients who have done these things, right? We've even explored it ourselves, right? Let's just do this thing. And yes, you feel good. You feel great. Is it going to reverse all, end all, be all, change all? No, because you still need more phytonutrients. You still need more antioxidants. You still need to have the rainbow color effect. And we can still measure those things, which we do in our patients, right? So when they come in from any product, whether it's a celery juice or a sprouting juice or whatever, carrot, apple, ginger juice, or whatever the juice may be, and different clinics and different places that have these things all around the world. The goal is like, well, then can we measure, are they optimized in their antioxidants or B vitamins and their minerals? Is their microbiome being more balanced or not? Is there inflammatory markers there? Is there immune markers better? If we measure those, we can show that with doing one monotherapy is not the way to look at overall total nutrition. It's not bad thing to help boost someone and get someone motivated. Everybody needs a reason why they should be walking into the produce aisle. So please do whatever makes you eat more fresh, real food. I'm all for that. So sometimes I'm like, hey, if that's what's going to take you to make you believe that plants have the power of healing, which they do, and you can get into eating more plant-based, hopefully over time, then please, by any means necessary, do a juice. But at the end of the day, we do end up having a lot of patients, unfortunately, particularly those people who have cancer or chronic diseases, where they're just walking around with their pitchers of juice and they're not doing better. And the reason being is because that's not full and complete nutrition at the end of the day. Even though it's not harmful, it's helpful, but it's not the end. It's a monotherapy. Your body's more complex. Nutrition is more complex. Healing is more complex than monotherapy. Just like I'm not telling everybody just swallow only curcumin, for example. And that's yes, a lot of things will get better. You can just take all that you want and inflammation will go down. All these other markers will get better, but that's still monotherapy. So from our perspective, or how I practice, and from our clinical experience over 23 years of seeing tens of thousands of patients, and following those patients, which is key.
Yeah, you have to
the demonstration of the use of those things. So giving advice is interesting, and it's a nice thing to do. And those people who do those things are great. But trends are everywhere, by the way. I mean, there's always a new juice. There's always a new this. There's also going to be a new burger at the fast food restaurants. That's also a trend, and 1 billion people will eat that tomorrow too. Doesn't mean that's always the best thing for them, right? These are trends. These are things. Now, there's not bad problems with celery. There's no problem with the celery. Is there salt issues or this, that? No, I'm not concerned about any of those things. So it's not going to ever harm people, and people want to do that. But is that something that people should always do or only do? Then that's self-limiting. That's the whole magic bullet theory of like even the plant-based people. I just need to do this, but they're not going to do anything else with their life. Right? That's the challenge that I'm trying to tell people when they're doing these things. It's a great motivating factor to get people to get on board with, hey, you need to start understanding that foods can have a healing power of your body. That's fantastic experience of any kind of juicing or any kind of change in diet. But the idea is that what happens is a lot of people will just say, I just do this and I don't really do the rest that I need to do. And then that's the shortcoming that they will come to.
I think it's like that with everything. I think it's like that with everything. You can't just do one thing, expect 100 symptoms to go away. I think,
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to tell, but I think sometimes the questions and Stephen, the question would be like, well, which juice is better? Like that's this, there's always this competition of like, I need to do better. It's like, well, you got to do better. You got to make sure that you're having rainbow colored foods, all the phytonutrients, right? Phyto meaning plant nutrients, like every color, reds, yellows, greens, purples, blues, every shade of green, every shade of gray, every shade of purple, every pink, every vegetable, grain, legume, and seed and nut and all. Every phytonutrient is something that has an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, anti-diabetes, anti-heart disease, beneficial effect at making the microbiome more diverse. So if we do monotherapy foods, we can then follow that. That's not helping because it's all about diversity at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think what happens is, a lot of people, they'll go, hey, let me try this. They'll hear about something. They'll try, let me try this bottle of whatever it is, curcumin or whatever it is. Let me try this turmeric. Let me try this. And they'll go and they'll do that. They won't do anything else. But what happened is those things never exploded like celery juice, which is crazy because when someone says, okay, I'm going to try celery juice, and then what the hell? This is different than the other 20 billion things I tried. That's, I think, because like I said, it wasn't trended by financial backing. It's like exactly.
No, I get it. I get the whole not having the monetary aspect. We've done the celery juice myself. So if anybody's sitting there saying, well, Dr. Pai hasn't done celery juice, haven't tried it. I'm like,
no, I'm not.
We've done that. But I'll tell you this, it's still monotherapy. Now, taking something like that is going to remove the crap that people might be eating in their lifestyle that is actually inhibiting and harming them health, right? So again, we can take a million different juices every couple of years, by the way. And I'm not trying to downplay your benefit of your celery juice, right? But to say that it's the end all be all, which a lot of people are pushing, is a little bit a little bit fancy. And I know I'm probably going to get trolled from this because I'm talking a little bit negative against the medical medium, but that's okay. I'm evidence-based. I'm like, look, I can show you carrot juice, I can show you green juice, I can show you any juice.
No, you're not.
What about the spices that people need? That people are not eating spices in their diet. So everybody's now talking about just juicing and vegetables, and they don't understand the true medical aspect of that aspect.
No, I understand. And spices are key for so many people for so many reasons. And the thing is, and I totally understand what you're saying, because people grab onto one thing and one thing only, and they try it, and it's really difficult. The only thing with the celery juice thing, which is really interesting is you get how it really exploded was it wasn't that person that needed to lose a little bit of weight or something, or needed to get their A1C better. It was people that were seasoned. That's how it really came to be. It's like seasoned people, right? And seasoned people knew what they had in their hands. And then of course it moves on to a whole bunch of people that aren't seasoned in their health, and they go, I'm going to try celery juice. I have a problem with my gallbladder. I'm going to try celery juice. And they have, 50 stones in their gallbladder, and they need care for their gallbladder. A glass of celery juice isn't going to fix it like that, but the seasoned people, it can help actually stop gallstones from being created, but seasoned people that have already been
and
there,
what will
like
stop that more is actually the celery seed more than just the celery stalk, by the way.
Well, hey, that's
actually has more phytochemicals in for prevention of the kidney stones. So that's where the seed part is actually the stronger part of when we're looking at the spice part, or the herbs of the celery seeds.
No, that's good. It's good that's there. And so, but I'll tell you, like, it's those seasoned people that have years of experience. That's really what really like happened. It was like these people that have like 20 years of sickness, and
right.
Man, and then they felt it hit them like nothing else. I'm not saying it's the be all end all of celery juice. This is one of the medical medium tools in the toolbox, but it sure as heck has changed and shaped the world and sickness, which is, it's really interesting. But no, Dr. Pai, I understand what you're saying. Like, it'll drive anybody crazy who's in the health field when people are grabbing onto this one thing and grabbing onto this one thing. I mean, you'll get people walking in being like, look, I'm doing neem oil. Dr. Pai, I'm doing neem oil. Dr. Pai, I'm doing, all this, whatever. And then you're just like, wait a minute. There's a lot of things you got to do. There's a lot of things we got to look at. There's a lot of things we have to look at in your blood work. It could be maddening for a lot of health professionals.
Let me move on to the next question. So this next question is the most irritating question I could ask a speaker.
Oh boy.
The audience hates it. It's the most horrible question you could ever say to any speaker or any audience member. It makes everyone nuts, and they can't stand it. And I hate this question also. The question is,
I'm not sure why you get asked it.
Is Brian Clement and Gabriel Cousins claim that fruit has been hybridized, it's too sweet, it's feeding yeast, mold, candida, fungus, and cancers, and they continue to say that if this was 100 years ago, you'd go outside for maybe 3 weeks a year and get some very tart, small, wild blackberries, and that would be the only sugar you'd get. There'd be no fruit the rest of the year. There'd be no hybridized Fuji apples, and therefore they're claiming that sure, fruits and vegetables is better than a standard American diet, but really there is fructose in sugar. And then they're saying that from Boston College, that the doctor there is saying that that the food of cancer is glucose and glutamine, and therefore, again, Thomas Seyfried is saying that cancer's food is glucose and glutamine, and that you have to try to starve both of them. So again, I want to be friends. I love fruit, and I'm criticizing cherries feels like anti-nature, but I can't get. They continue to say this. They say they worked with Darkfield and the other type of blood work and did live blood cell analysis for 20 years, and they are saying this about fruit. Do you have feedback? I want to be evidence-based on this, but the problem is if no one studies it and there is no evidence, so help me to understand what they're saying and why they are relentless and won't stop saying it. Help me.
Dr. Pai, are you anti-fruit?
No.
I was just
why would I be anti-fruit?
Well,
that
I
means
didn't
you're
think you were.
anti-phytonutrients, you're anti-antioxidants, you're anti-fiber, you're anti-inflammatory proteins. Every study that's looking at phytonutrients and anti-cancer benefits, for example, will show that every single phytonutrient has an anti-cancer benefit. That's why we're trying to look at rainbow-colored foods. Now, I wouldn't be juicing all day long fruits like for extra sugar, but really what happens when we show, I'll just give you an example. So they used to tell diabetics not to have blueberries because it raised their blood sugar, right? And then what the studies were looking at, so they're putting a few blueberries on oatmeal and spike their blood sugar. So unfortunately, medicine would say, hey, shouldn't be eating fruit because it raises your blood sugar. You have diabetes because of this glucose, fructose in the fruit. However, what we now know is that when they eat a serving of fruit, a serving of blueberries, a fourth of a cup, for example, then it actually will decrease their blood sugar. Why? Because it has an anti-inflammatory effect with that a higher amount of phytonutrients. It has more fiber, it has the antioxidants, and it has anti-inflammatory protein. So the key is I don't listen to what Brian Clement would say, by the way, personally, the data will show worldwide. I mean, if you look at even people in the blue zones, they're still eating fruit. They're not eating fruit. They're living past 100. You look at any study or any group of people who live the longest, fruit is part of it. Now, again, we have to look at probably getting more organic, more, non-GMO, et cetera, not using it as a fruit juice where we're just putting a bunch of other things or sugar in there as well. But, to say not to eat fruit, then most people don't either understand the nutrition or the biological complexity of all the wonderful aspects of antioxidants, vitamins, phytonutrients, and fiber.
I look at it, good info, Dr. Pai. I look at it, then if we're going to try to keep glucose out of the way of our cells, if we're going to try to keep glucose away from our organs, we may as well just cash it in now. We may as well just forget about it. We may as well just forget about life or living. Our existence depends on glucose to the cells. What's the best glucose? Well, it's fructose, whether anybody likes it or not. It's fructose. That's the best glucose. It's sugars from citrus and papayas and melons and anything else you want to eat, right? Apples, berries, cherries, whatever. It's sugars from these. And potatoes, that's another great one too. So but there's other foods. I'm not naming the whole list. It's just try not to punish me if I don't cover them all right now. But the point is we can't exist otherwise. We can't. And even avocados, which is a fatty fruit, has a substantial amount of actual fructose in it. So we have to realize that it's how we exist. It's how we live, how we think, how we breathe. It's glucose. It's sugar. Take sugar away from us, we're screwed.
And so what you have to see, which I agree, right, is what is that fructose or glucose coming with, right? So when it's coming with all the antioxidants, phytonutrients, all those wonderful benefits, then that's where we have the benefits of it. Now, most of the standard American diet and what we're eating in ultra processed foods is just, as as everybody knows, is ultra refined and processed, which is then terrible. That's when sugar got the evil aspect. But I think people are trying to then boil down, again, a simplicity of nutrition and saying, well, it has sugar in there on some level of like glucose or fructose, and it's possible, but it's not good for you. But you have to understand all the other things that are compiled in it. There's hundreds of phytochemicals. Even when we look at, for example, a kale, we'll have like 90 different phytonutrients. So even though we think of just vitamin K2 or folic acid, there's so many other compounds in every berry, every fruit. That's not just the main beta carotene, for example. So this is where we have to look at, don't worry about the sugar from there. I'm worried about the average person going out to fast food or getting packaged candied foods or things that actually have extra added sugar. Like I'm getting a coffee and getting a latte that's filled with, sugar, or Coca-Cola products, or, any kind of thing like that. I think that's where we should be shifting the discussion, instead of vilifying fruit, which people should be eating, than to actually saying, well, you should maybe get rid of these bad sugary products. Because, eating, at the end of the day, Anthony's right. Our cells run, our universal training dollar of our cell is glucose. So we do need to have it. And that's why when people thought cancer is just taking glucose as its energy and restricting, carbohydrates in the diet, and people shifted towards ketogenic diets in the animal models that we were participating at Johns Hopkins in 2008. We started to see that when we restricted the animals to 100%, so they weren't getting any glucose, the cancer cells were able to change their metabolism, use ketones to grow the cancer cells, right? So the body's really complex. It will use energy from different sources, but the idea is we need to get the source that has all the other benefits with it, and that's what you get with fruit.
Yeah, you don't want to strip it down to nothing. You don't want to strip sugar down to nothing where it's got nothing in it. And if you eat piles of sugar that has nothing in it, then you're in trouble. Even cane sugar's got nutrients in it, sugar cane itself. I mean, you have things in there that are critical, but if you strip all those nutrients away, then you have just straight sugar and nothing else. You removed all the antioxidants, you removed all the phytochemical compounds, then you're dealing with an entirely different species of sugar. genetically modified sugar too is not great. So put all that together, but does it feed actual cancer? Cancer will eat anything. It will eat anything. So that's something to keep in mind. And what is cancer? Cancer is a blend of a couple of different things. You have to have a specific amount of toxins in the body and specific amount of pathogens. But in the end, yeah, if you're eating something and that is missing so many of the things like Dr. Pai's talking about too, the antioxidants and all those different phytochemical compounds, if it's missing that, then we really get in trouble. That's, that's the whole thing. But I think it's not that cancer will eat sugar. It's not that cancer will eat fat. Cancer will eat protein. It's a combination of really the right circumstances in somebody's body. That's a big part of it. You got to have all these toxins and you got to have all these pathogens. And the combination of both of those is really what goes wrong. But we can't blame fruit, is what I'm saying. You can't say fruit is going to give you cancer. Fruit is going to feed cancer. Fruit is going to, turn on you so that the cancer turns on you, or cancer will feed off the fruit. We can't go that way. I think if we go that route, we're in a dangerous place, because like Dr. Pai was saying, there's all this medicine in there, and glucose is what our bodies thrive on, is what I was saying too. So if your body thrives on glucose, that glucose has to be filled with these nutrients to help slow down or prevent cancer. And it's critical, right, Dr. Pai?
Yes. And you have to understand that nature is kind. Humans may not be, but nature is always kind. So, it's not a double cheeseburger or an ice cream sundae that's coming out of the plant, right? That we're eating, right? And also eating it in a certain amount. So it's not just juicing it and extracting it. And yes, there's little extremes of the people doing juicing, but to say to limit fruit, then also there's a limit of like, well, then those people, because we see, again, when people do these restrictive diets, because they go to places, then we can see that their overall condition doesn't improve, because you need phytonutrients. Again, a lot of people think antioxidants are one thing and phytonutrients are completely different. You need to have the color. You need to have the phytonutrients. That's only found in a lot of the fruits. They have the spectrum of the rainbow a lot, right? Now, we also get it from all the vegetables and also the grains, legumes, but we're getting certain specific phytocompounds in fruits. So I would never restrict anybody from fruits. Now, what we do, though, we would like to look at, of the plant foods that we have, does a patient have a sensitivity to any of those foods? And yes, they can. Can they have an immediate IgE or a delayed IgG4 reaction up to 4 days later after exposure to a fruit? Absolutely. So people can come back with the sensitivity to citrus, for example, or melon, or an apple, or something else like that. So yes, those are other aspects where certain fruits could be more individualized. We're saying, hey, you know what? You might need to back off that because your immune system is having a problem with that. And we can also retrain that person's immune system to become more tolerant to that. But at the end of the day, why we want to train someone's immune system to be more tolerant and also fix their microbiome, which is one reason why they have those issues as well, is because we still want those phytonutrients as much as possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when I was saying cancer will, and when I was saying, excuse me, sorry, Steve, when I was saying cancer feed on anything, industrialized toxins, chemicals, toxic chemicals, and so forth. All those things, that's what I mean. It'll eat anything. It'll eat any kind of garbage in a toxic form too. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Okay.
So
let me go on with some more questions. So, and for the remaining questions, just give shorter 30-second answers so I could run through a couple of things just to get your feedback, even though we won't get as much detail. In terms of if someone has an infection and the doctor says, take an antibiotic, do you two take antibiotics, or do you recommend them, or do you do something herbal? What's your approach to antibiotics? Or is there a substitute for it, or how do you guys handle that?
Dr. Pai, you first or me?
Go ahead.
Okay.
30 seconds.
I would be honored. I don't take antibiotics, but it doesn't mean antibiotics don't have a place for people in certain conditions. So I'm not anti-antibiotic. That's not it at all. It's important to know. It's just there's a place and time. Of course, do what your doctor tells you, do what's right for you with your doctor, all that. But if someone needs an antibiotic, there's a lot of different reasons someone could be up against a problem. So we can't put it in one, just boom. Is it good to take an antibiotic or not? And there's so many different variables. It's insane. variables where you're dealing with somebody that has what kind of bacterial infection. That alone just changes the ballpark, right? Is it streptococcal? Is it something else? Is it a staph infection? Is it MRSA? What is it that they're dealing with? Is it some kind of other bacterial infection? The point is that all these things matter and they play a role. So you can't say antibiotics are evil. Never take one. No one should ever touch one. They should just be eradicated off the face of this planet. And the medical system can't say that at all. So many different situations. And then people, they get in trouble. They're not taking care of themselves. They're never taught to take care of themselves. They don't know what to do for their health. They don't have any idea. And they're getting sick. They're getting UTIs. They go to the doctor, they get an antibiotic, getting another UTI, doctor, antibiotic, they get another, and it keeps on going in these vicious cycles. But they're not being taught what they can do so that they can eventually not have a UTI and eventually not have to rely on an antibiotic, which is crisis medicine. So that's crisis medicine. So it all depends on what's happening in certain situations. And don't get me started on Lyme disease, whole nother thing. I mean, that's a whole nother situation as well that I've written about over and over again, about, a time and place for an antibiotic for all kinds of different aspects of medicine. But that's just a quick response. 10 seconds, Dr. Pai.
So in our practice, we actually use a lot of natural antimicrobials, natural antivirals, natural antifungals, natural antiparasitics. So you have to first understand what the condition that you're treating, number one. Number two is that then you have to look at, of those things, potency, purity, safety, and efficacy. Because everybody will say, oh, I take this for a candida or I take this for a parasite. It's like you have to look at the potency of the herbs. Are you getting it at a clinical dose, right? And the other thing is, like, remember, none of these things are only going to knock out the bad guys. They also knock out good guys. So we do a lot of, especially when it comes to microbiome, because a lot of people are now treating gut issues all the time now with cleanses and with products and stuff. What we do is we actually we test the sensitivity and resistance through laboratory testing of looking at what drugs work, which I prefer not to use. And then we look at the natural therapies, because just what? Like everything else, there's resistance now to a lot of the natural antimicrobials that people are taking, especially since the pandemic, because people were just treating with all sorts of supplements and all sorts of natural things. Good ideas, but all these natural antimicrobials are no different than the antibiotics. It's just a same mechanism of action, just usually safer, less side effects. So we just have to really understand how to use them respectfully and not just say, I just take this every day or I take it for prevention. It's like you wouldn't take amoxicillin every day for prevention. So we do use a lot of that. That's our first line therapy. The only time we use antibiotics in our practice, for example, someone has a pneumonia, they're in the hospital, someone's going to get surgery, they need antibiotics. There's a certain rule and area that they absolutely have to have it. But outside of that emergency room, outside of the hospital, we try as much as possible to prevent it because of the resistance issue with superbugs and also the dysfunction of microbiome, where one antibiotic can cause GI dysfunction up to 18 months later. So we try to reduce it as much as possible. And in our book and how I look at things, increasing your immune system functioning is key. Lowering the inflammation is key. So if we get both of those things in the square, usually people don't have that recurrent infection coming in. It's always going to the root cause, like Anthony was mentioning, like go to the root cause, try to figure out what that dysfunction is, fix it, so that we're not just doing stopgap measures, even using natural therapies.
When people get sick, they often say, I'm going to fight this, I'm going to be strong. In the end of the day, I think it sounds great. Positive attitudes, great. Prayer, all this stuff is amazing. But the question is, does it work? Does it make a difference? Does your mind, does your spiritual practice, does your love, does your heart, does your forgiveness? I've heard, everyone always says, of course, it makes a big difference. But in your practice, with real world patients, does it actually make a difference in how many people get better, how many prevent getting disease? Should we be focused very hard on getting the perfect attitude and being grateful and not having anger? I mean, does this make a difference in your work?
Absolutely. Epigenetics is everything. So the diet, the lifestyle, environment, and the belief system, which you're talking about here, is key. We do have data. There is also long-term studies also showing the same thing, that positive attitude, changing the person's heart rate variability, heart rate coherence, syncing with the brain, we're having more centeredness, meditation, mindfulness, that kind of gratitude aspect, which we now can biologically measure, actually increases natural killer cell function naturally. So even though we give glucan 300 and vitamin D, we're measuring and monitoring these things, just by having them in that centered place actually will increase their immune system function. It will also decrease inflammatory markers. They actually live the longest. The studies will show they have the longest in longevity. Even stage 4 cancer patients live longer than anybody else, regardless of treatment, when they're in that centered practice. So that's what the data is. So yes, absolutely. The patient, because again, this is where people want monotherapy. They might be eating correctly. They might take the right product, but if they're stressed out or they're not in that centered place, which is a practice, which is almost more difficult than anything else. Anthony probably will speak to this as well. More people have difficulty in being that. That's why it's easier to do a juice or take a pill or, do something, because we want that instant gratification, but it's a self-practice of like, can we do heart rate variability? Can we do some centered practice every day, 20 minutes to get that syncing and getting our health outcome improved? And the data will show, yes, we can. So super important for us.
You got to stay positive. And you don't want to think you're dying. You don't want to, believe you're dying. That doesn't help. You have to have, obviously, a positive outlook. You have to have a good attitude. Of course, all that counts. But even saying that, I've known some pretty miserable SOBs in some, say, neighborhood that treats their family terrible, treats their kin terrible, treats their, siblings terrible, grouchy as hell, 85 years old. Everybody in the street says that guy is one miserable person. Never has a positive thing to say. Everybody who talks to him or that person gets berated. But he's still 85 years old, 87 years old. He goes out in his front yard. He waters his garden. He goes back into the house. He starts screaming at the mailman. He calls him all these terrible derogatory names. And this guy is just the worst and miserable, but he's 87 years old. And you got a 25-year-old that's bedridden on Mattress Island. And that 25-year-old is on Mattress Island, or that 22-year-old on Mattress Island is thinking positive times 100. That 19-year-old on Mattress Island who's suffering, nice person, wouldn't do harm to anyone, thinks only, does affirmations, does everything, thinks positive, does meditations, everything possible, and tried everything, but they're bedridden with 50 neurological symptoms and been to every doctor there was and that they can go to or they have resources to. And then you got that 87-year-old person who's just a miserable, absolutely miserable, hatred coming out of their mouth and everything else. How does that work? There's a lot of things we don't understand. And so, but yes, you have to have a positive everything. Yes, it's critical. You got to stay strong on that if you can. But I will say, from over 30 years of experience and working with lots of doctors, a lot of sick people for decades now, it doesn't just always add up where, being positive, doing your affirmations, doing your meditations and everything, and including other, that's not the total package for sure, because there are some miserable people that have done terrible things to their friends and family, and they're still ticking and and they're still kicking. And then you got 20-year-olds, 22-year-olds, 25-year-olds. They're on Mattress Island. It's a medical medium term, that Mattress Island. And you got babies and you got children and they're sick. And so there still is a lot to think about, because in the end, it's why are they sick? Whether someone is miserable with a bad attitude or not. It's why are they sick? But I agree. You have to have a good attitude, and it helps the body. It helps in so many ways. Dr. Pai's right about that for sure.
Okay. We just have 1 minute. So one quick question. Kate, where are you from? And would you like to ask a question? Oh, sorry.
Hi.
Kate,
Can you hear
hi,
me?
where are you from? Yeah, where are you from?
Hi, I'm from South Florida.
Go ahead.
I have a question to AW. I'm a huge fan. I read and listen to everything you put out, and you always say the details matter. So I was just wondering, Hippocrates Wellness in South Florida recommends daily shots of wheatgrass for healing, and you recommend barley grass juice powder for healing in the heavy metal detox smoothie. Can you talk about the differences between the two, and can you replace like growing your own wheatgrass, which is more accessible and easy than expensive barley grass juice powder in the heavy metal detox smoothie? Will it do the same thing?
Thanks for being on here, first of all. And I'm really sorry if you're struggling on any level with any kind of symptoms. My heart pours out to you. Just know that. And I love wheatgrass juice. I do. I'm not anti-wheatgrass juice, so I will say that that's important. I think a lot of people will be like, does he even like wheatgrass juice? And I do. And does it do the same thing as barley grass juice powder? It doesn't do the same thing. Barley grass juice powder assimilates differently. It has a different structure altogether in so many ways, and has different phytochemical compounds, and especially when it's toxin related. But I know at Hippocrates in South Florida or in Florida, I know that they really rely on wheatgrass juice. And I was always positive, towards that for sure, and positive towards wheatgrass. And growing your own is a great idea if you can. I know it's a hassle for so many people, but it's a great idea. It's something that if it feels good, if it resonates with you and feels good, some people will drink it and they'll be like, well, I'm not feeling anything. I don't think it's doing anything for me. Or some people will be like, it kind of gives me a little bit of a tummy ache, or it gives me a sore throat. The wheatgrass juice can give people different experiences, I've noticed. And, and you could always ask your doctor, hey, should I be on the wheatgrass juice or so forth? But I'm a big fan of the barley grass juice powder for what it does. For so many reasons, but yet I'm not against wheatgrass juice. And I think growing your own wheatgrass, if you like it, and it feels good, I think it's wonderful. But yes, barley grass juice powder, I always find through my experience all these years, and the information I get from, if you know me and you know my work, obviously, the information comes from above. And it was always barley grass juice powder. Was really important for like the HMDS and so forth. Thanks for asking. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Both tell us how someone could stay, how someone can stay in touch with you. Where do they find more information about you, your books, your lectures? How do we get Dr. Pai first? How do we stay in touch with you?
So you can go to sanjevani.net, spelled SANJEVANI.net. You can go up and sign in for our newsletter and keep in contact. We'll be opening up our podcast coming back soon, which was very popular a few years ago. We'll be interviewing evidence-based practitioners, and maybe I'll have Anthony on to talk about certain things. You can go there. We also have sanjevanistore.com. You can look at our evidence-based, clinically tested, patented ingredients of products. So it's a great place to go. And then if you want to set up a consultation, we do telehealth and health coaching sessions to people all around the world. We're able to send the testing kits and products and everything anywhere that it needs to be done. So that's something that people want to reach out, go ahead and reach out for us. And you also can get the book and Inflammation Nation. You can get it on our website. You can get a signed copy, or if you like, you can go to Amazon or Audible. We also have it available there.
Okay, thank you. And on our website, you could just click on Dr. Pai or Dr. William or Anthony William, and it'll take you to their website. So Anthony, how do we stay in touch with you and your programs and your books? What's the best way?
Medical Medium Podcast. Just go there. Medicalmedium.com, of course. Medicalmedium.com. And the Brain Saver books, I have them behind me right here. Those are great resources with information, lots of information. Be prepared though once you read them. And information comes from above. And I wish I was that smart and could write these, but I have to instead get the information from above. Anyway, but that's where you can find me, those places, medicalmedium.com and so forth. So yes.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you both coming on. If we could unmute everyone else so they can also thank you. We really appreciate you generously sharing this information that you guys have spent many years learning. So thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. And our audience would like to thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pai.
Thank you.
Excellent debate. Thanks.
When we looked at
Walking. That's how I
Thank
have.
you.